It gives me a great pleasure to introduce a person who's been a personal fan of mine. I've followed her work with great interest and received so many inspired moments from her. And I'd like her to share with you her understanding and some of the snippets she's managed to gather on the subject of race, because race was probably one of the first of the divide and rule policies which was implemented on this scale. And it's not a coincidence that those who are wanting to replicate it want caste to be a feature of race. And so I'd like to introduce Jane Elliott. And Jane, if you could have a few words with us, that would be wonderful. And then we will go through, okay, Dee has disappeared. But after Jane, just to give a bit of advance notice, it'd be wonderful if Dee could pick up the thread as soon as Jane's finished. And then Swamiji, if you could conclude with some more words of wisdom. We are blessed to have three persons who I think of as matriarchs in the traditional sense.
Now, can you hear me? I can hear and see you. Can you hear me?
We can hear and see you absolutely wonderfully, Jane. Please
Wonderful.
Take it away.
Okay, then I'm going to take it away, and I'm going to irritate everyone in this room. Number one, race and caste are both damn lies. It's absolutely unacceptable to consider caste anymore and to consider race anymore. The word race, to mean a specific group of people, came out of France in 1580. People say to me, it's been going on forever. Why are you trying to fight this? It hasn't been going on forever. It has been going on since 1580. People, that's less than 500 years. Previous to 1580, previous to the Spanish Inquisition, people were just people. We're all part of the family of man. And then suddenly Torquemada comes along, trying to turn everybody into Catholics, was going to kill anybody who wasn't Christian, had killed over 2,000 people, and somebody said, you killed a lot of Christians. At that point, he realized that you couldn't tell what a person's religion was by looking at them. So he had to find a way to decide who must deserve to die. And he set upon skin color. He called lighter colored people white because white is the color of purity and goodness. He called darker people black because black is the color of savagery and evil. We have been living with those two words for almost 500 years. It's time to give that up, people. There are no white people. They do not exist. Unless you have no melanin in your skin, you are not white. There are no white people, and there are no black people. It's time to get rid of those two terms. If you're going to use the terms of the late 1400s and 1500s, if you're going to use that vernacular, then you must also use the kinds of clothes they wore at those times, the kinds of communication they used, and the kinds of transportation they used. And I want to see all you young men stand up and show me your pointy-toed shoes and your knee-length pants and your powdered wigs. If you're going to live the way they lived in the 1400s and 1500s, then by the gods of war, let's do it wholeheartedly. There was no mention of race until the Spanish Inquisition. It's time to give it up, people. You are all members of the same race. There's only one race of people on the face of the earth, and that's the human race, and you are all members of it. Every person in this room is my 30th to 50th cousin. Now, you might not like being my cousin, but you are my 30th to 50th cousins because you were born and raised on this earth. Get over it, people. Get over the idea of the rightness of whiteness. People say to me, well, white rhymes with right. I say, yeah, it also rhymes with fight and fright and slight. Get over it. We are all shades of brown. And I'll tell you how to solve this problem. Get a copy of the Pantone color wheel. Have you ever seen the Pantone color wheel? This is a color wheel of skin colors. On this color wheel are the skin colors of every human being, and you are all human beings on the face of the earth. You get this up, put it on the wall, enlarge it so that your kids or your students or whoever, whatever age you have, can go up, put their palms on that color wheel and run their palms around until they come to a color that matches the color on the back of their hand. Then go to the thesaurus, the big thesaurus, not the little one, the big thesaurus, and look up the synonyms for brown. You will find over 100 synonyms for brown, people. Pick the one that you think matches your skin color, and then go to the dictionary and look up that word and see what that word means in the dictionary. Then the next time you have to fill in a form where it says race, put human. And where it says skin color, put whatever skin you saw, whatever your color was, on the Pantone color field. Now, if you think I'm out of my mind, I am slightly out of my mind because I've been doing this so long and I'm so god awful mad at what's going on. People, get a copy of this magazine. National Geographic magazine for April. Dee, you're nodding. I take it you've seen this magazine, Dee. It is full of, it's April 2018. People, get this magazine. Download this map of the world, and it shows where human beings came from and how they managed to populate every landmass on the face of the earth. Every landmass on the face of the earth was originally populated by people from Africa. People, you've got to get this into people's heads, and you've got to do it now. We're running on real short time, folks. Within 25 years, white people, what we call white people, and they aren't white. We've got to come up with a new word for white. People, if you don't have enough iron in your blood to keep it healthy, you're called anemic. If you don't have enough melanin in your blood, in your skin to protect you from the dangerous rays of the sun, you must be melanemic. If you have more melanin in your skin, you're melanaceous, which rhymes with gracious and spacious and efficacious. It is not a negative term. If you have a lot of melanin in your skin, you're called melanotic. And melanotic is in the dictionary, and it means having a lot of melanin in your skin so that your skin is dark brown to almost black. It doesn't say too black. You are not black. You are very dark brown, people. It's time to get educated. I'm an educator. The word educator comes from the root duck deuce, which means lead, the prefix e, which means out, the suffix ate, which means the act of, and the suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. And the number one ignorance in the United States of America and in the world at this point is the ignorance of believing that skin color is a determination of your worth as a human being or of your intelligence. Skin color has nothing to do with your intelligence. What it has to do with is the desire of, I'm sorry, but melanemic people to prove their strength and their brilliance by killing those who disagree with them. We've been doing it for 500 years. It's time to put a stop to it. It's time to put a stop to it now. In the United States of America, and I want you not to call this country America any longer. If you can possibly give up calling this country America, I would appreciate it. America is everything from the northernmost point of Canada to the southernmost point of South America. All the citizens in all those countries are Americans. The United States of America is the 48 contiguous states, Alaska, Hawaii, and the islands off the southeastern coast of the United States. That should be called the United States of America. That's what it is. Now, if you don't want to use all those syllables, call it the US, because US spells us. And it means those of us who are citizens of the United States of America. It's extremely important that we do that because 6 years ago, some fools elected a so-called president to this country who was determined and is still determined to divide this country. We've got to get back to seeing the United States as the United States of America, not just America, and to inviting in and appreciating all those immigrants who have made this country as great as it is. Immigration is the most important thing that has ever happened in the United States of America, people. And the indigenous population accuse me of indigenous erasure because I say, look, even what we call Native Americans came to this continent from Africa. Get over this nonsense and start educating people to the truth instead of the lie. Now, we've got another problem in this country. It's going to make it worse for those of you who are not what we call US people and Christians. Right now, we have a bunch of people in this country, the evangelical Christians, who are trying to take us back to the 1940s. You have to be aware of the danger of that group. They are the most dangerous group I have ever seen, and they are determined to turn this country back about 500 years. We have to put a stop to this, folks. We have to do it, and we have to do it now. If Christianity is the only thing that will allow you to become a citizen of the United States is going to become very, very small and very, very powerless. We have to put a stop to this. We have to realize that without all those other, there are three things I want you to remember about what I'm saying. Some of you are going to have a real hard time with this, but three things you have to remember. Number one, without what we call blacks, there would be no what we call whites. That's a fact. We are all descendants of those people from Africa. And if you trace your DNA far enough, you'll find some DNA from a country in Africa. Number one. Number two, Without the Jews, there would be no Christians. The first 5 books of the Old Testament came out of the Torah. So these Proud Boys who marched down the street saying, Jews will not replace us. I think you fools, you were Jewish before you were Christian. Get over
Forgive
it.
me,
The third
forgive me
thing-
for interrupting, Jane.
Wait,
May I
wait,
just give
just
you
a
2
minute.
more minutes to wind up, and then we'll have a further conversation as well. So 2 more
women,
minutes,
there
and then
well, just let me say it. Without women, there would
Please.
be no men.
please.
Without women, there would be no men. Without women, there will be no men. Without women, there will be no men. I will keep on saying that until you say it's time for you to stop now, Ms. Elliott. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you. I'm
Thank
done.
you very much, Jane.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Jane. Before we go to Mama Dee, I just want to introduce everyone to an idea we call adhikar. Adhikar means that it's the right to be able to participate in something. Now, what adhikar for us is listen to people who have earned the right to be able to speak to you and to share wisdom with you. Be careful of listening to people who have not earned that right. They may be loquacious, they may be verbose, they may be eloquent, but if they have not earned the right to speak to you and share wisdom, then always have a second thought. Now, the ladies who are speaking on the panel, I don't think there is anybody in this room who would be courageous enough to challenge the idea that they have earned the right to speak wisdom and to speak it in the manner that they do. So deeply, deeply grateful to Jane and indeed the others who are going to speak in a moment for their contribution. Mama Dee, thank you so much. Your opening remarks, please. You have 6 to 7 minutes. I'm sure that you're not going to be constrained by that, so please do get into the flow, and forgive me for interrupting you when it approaches the end of that time. Thank you very much, Mama Dee, for joining us. Please share.
Thank you so much. And to the convener, to you and the guests that are here, and oh my God, these prestigious colleagues that are sitting here. Thank you, Miss Elliott. And I'm waiting to hear from our other distinguished speaker. I am honored to have the pleasure to share. And as Miss Elliott stated, and as part of the Each One Teach One Partners in Progress program that we teach about culture. We teach about appreciation of the differences that we are. We teach about customs and religions, and that they're not a threat to the United States of America, because guess what? 1619, and prior to that, early years of 17, Africans were brought to this country to build it. And in the process of building, you have what you call today biracial. Many of us are biracial. Native American runs through my veins. Africa is in my veins. I also have islanders in my veins. There was a marriage between a man and a woman. There wasn't a marriage, but there was producing children. The Africans produced many biracial children. So we encourage people to study the history of the United States. That's how you're going to understand racism, caste, segregation. It's all the same. It's to keep a darker color of people under control, to keep them as part of the labor in building this country with no pay. No pay. We're feeding you, we're clothing you. I'm your master, you're on my plantation. So why should I pay you? I own you, but you're lower than a horse. You're lower than my cattle that you herd and feed every day. You're not human. You shouldn't be educated. And if you're caught, we're going to make you an example, hanging you, cutting your feet off if you try to run away to another state. Many Africans tried to go back to Africa, had no idea where they were, what direction. So many of them tried, were killed, were hung, were burned, lived in shanties, barely clothed, work from sun up to sundown. So you tell me about caste. Caste was there. Why is it coming up again? We put a Band-Aid on it with civil rights. Civil Rights Act. The very first, when you hear about the Constitution, you need to study that. How the Bill of Rights, free speech was number one. How the small number of Africans, or a few African born of the Africans, fought to put the 13th Amendment. They wanted that. They wanted to be free. But with that came a lot of pain. But guess what? That small number of slaves and their African born children said, it's worth it. I might as well die trying. Some did. But guess what? That 13th Amendment is there, and that 13th Amendment is the beacon for every immigrant and anyone within the United States of America to be free. Number one amendment is free speech. The 14th Amendment said, oh, we're going to make you a citizen. But guess what? Slaves really were not citizens. It was a word. Trying to purchase a home, trying to write, make an X, because some didn't know how to write. Pay taxes, didn't quite understand that. I own the land, but the land can be taken from me. Some never educated, but they dreamed and they prayed for freedom and for the United States of America to acknowledge them. And let me tell you something else about the culture. They were a part of every war in this United States, the Revolution, the Civil War, and after the Civil War, Congress granted 1866, the Buffalo Soldiers, who were slaves, to rebuild what was torn down during the Civil War. African-American descendants of slaves built California parks, Yosemite, yes, Sequoia, yes, they rebuilt buildings, houses, whatever. They also ran the stagecoach. That's your mail. Do you ever hear about that? Absolutely not. So there's no understanding of this word caste, racism. No one understands it because you don't have the history to put it together. Miss Elliott, she did an excellent job with those students. We're together, we love each other because you look like me. But then when we distinguish a difference between us, and what I experience is called divide and conquer. No group should let anyone divide you. Come together. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have opinions. It's okay to dream, to have visions. It's not okay to compromise because you have to keep moving forward as a group of understanding one another to fight the ignorance of others. And that's what it is. Some do not know history of the United States of America. They're fearful because someone has influenced them. The darker they are, they're criminals, they're thieves, they will brutalize you, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing applies to a lighter shade of person. A European of fair skin will brutalize you just like a person of dark skin. And that's because it's fear of one another. We don't appreciate each other. We don't look at each other as a man, regardless of Native American here in the United States or an Indian that comes from abroad. We're still a man. Same thing with a woman. A woman is a woman. We're beautiful in what shade of color we are. A man is distinguished of highest esteem, no matter what color, his education, his status quo. He is still a creature of dominance here on this earth. But there are those that don't understand that. They have no humility. They don't understand the human race. And this is what I advocate for. Understand who you think is your enemy. Don't look at the color of my skin. Don't look at where I come from. Don't look at how much money I have or the zip code I live in. Look at me. Talk to me. Find out who I am. And this is what we teach our students. I have many students that call me Mama D. That's a name that they pleasure because to all of them in our programs, we teach the first thing: ethical behavior, respect. If what you don't understand, research it. There are numerous books, authors, educators, institutions that can help you understand where you live, who live in your neighborhood. Those who are in the leadership role, do not fear them. We introduce our students from K on up to adult. Go talk to your leaders within your community. Have a relationship with them if you can. Let them know more about you and find out who they are. Everyone within the United States of America, as well as the world, have an opportunity, an obligation to teach and to be proud of who they are. I am proud of who I am. I've been in situations of being denied. Guess what? I stand there. Did I take up arms? No, I did not. Was I threatened with someone with arms? No, I was not. Because I let them know your ignorance is what's in front of you, young man or young woman. Flip me a bird, it didn't hurt. I just know your shortcomings. You don't know anything about me. The cell phone that you're using and talking less to an African American born, the gamma electric cell was invented by a Black man, the first nuclear engineer in the United States. Your railroad crossing, a Black man. You love a tablet. You love your computers, your color screens, your light switch, your air conditioning, your refrigeration. Study that. You'll see that the Africans and then later African American borns built many, created many inventions, built many buildings, architectural design. Many on the
2
front.
minutes. 2 minutes, Mama D, please, if you could.
Okay, many on the front of the medical community. Many created teaching instructions. Many went into the judicial. Small numbers, but it's there for everyone to enjoy. You don't see us standing at the door saying you can't enjoy something that was created by people that look like me. So if you leave with anything today, start researching and be proud of who you are. And yes, the fight, it has been going on, like Miss Elliott said. I guess I'll die and it'll still be going on. But take up the fight of knowledge. Take up the fight to stand up and say this is wrong. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Mama D. Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I invite Swami Ambikananda to share some thoughts, there were a couple of points that Mama D raised there, which I want to make sure we didn't miss. A short while ago, a little video clip emerged from our community, which highlighted the notion that everybody is talking about caste to everybody else, except talking to us about it. Yeah? And there is something which I call the colonizer mind, which I think would be really good to understand. The colonizer mind is something which is like a mimetic virus. It can be communicated and it can be spread, but it has a certain pathology. And I'm going to read some words which sprang to my mind when I read the clauses that were being put forward in this SB 40 something or other. So the words are as follows: invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ wheresoever placed, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to apply and appropriate to themselves and his successors the kingdoms, dukedoms, countries, counties, principalities, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his and their use and profit. One small paragraph, and we are all here as a consequence of that one small paragraph. Some scholars will have recognized it. Is there anybody who recognizes that? It was the first piece of legislation which empowered the legitimate use of force on those principles. 1452, it's the piece of legislation which encouraged so many people to venture out into the world and take what was not theirs, to dehumanize, to vilify, and to diminish other souls. We are here because one young man, fueled by those words, felt he had the authority to go in search of India, the fabled land of India. And he wasn't going there to bring them human rights, unlike your current ambassador, which is an interesting observation. He was there to take and to steal because the people there were not fully humans. Persona non grata means you haven't even granted the status of being a person to that being. They were part of the animal kingdom. This is the impact of words. This is the papal bull, which was known as the doctrine of discovery. And it's the doctrine which says, I have some right to fix you. You can't fix your own house, I can do it. And the moment you have one person from one group standing up, courageous enough to say, I know how to fix that group, it should ring an alarm bell. The only way we survive in comfort is if I look after my home and do the best that I can, let my neighbor look after his home so that he can do the best, or she can do the best, or they can do the best. I'm in California, aren't I? Sorry. And between the two of us, we can turn to each other and say, can we help each other? But if I throw stones at his house and he throws stones at my house, all of our houses are destroyed. This is such a simple principle. SB 403 flies in the face of that, and yet it works on the basis of this doctrine of discovery. This is the doctrine which your countryman, Jabez Sutherland, referred to when he penned a poem. It was a poem written by a colleague of his called Shadwell, and he said, if you see an island shore which has not been grabbed before, lying in the track of trade as islands should, with the simple native quite unprepared to make a fight, oh, you should just drop in and take it for his good. Not for love of money, be it understood, but you row yourself to the land with a Bible in your hand, and you pray for him and rob him for his good. If he hollers, then you shoot him for his good. All this lesson I can shape to campaigning at the Cape where the boar is being hunted for his good. He would welcome British rule if he weren't a blaming fool. Thus you see it's only for his good. So they're burning houses for his good, making helpless women homeless for their good, leaving little children orphans for their good. In India, there are bloody sites booting out the Hindus' rights, where we've slaughtered many millions for their good. And with bullet and with brand, desolated all the land, but you know we did it only for their good. Yes, and still more far away, down in China, let us say, where the Christian robs the heathen for his good. You may burn and you may shoot, you may fill your sack with loot, but be sure you do it only for his good. If you dare commit a wrong on the weak because you're strong, you may do it if you do it for his good. You may rob him if you do it for his good. You may kill him if you do it for his good. You may legislate against the Hindus of California so long as you do it for their good. Turning to discriminatory civilizational practices and the adhikar of people who have experienced firsthand, I'm going to share with you that Swami Ambikananda, who is a Brahmin according to our tradition, in that she is revered, she is acknowledged as a priest, and yet has no hereditary, hierarchical, endogamous privilege to say that she is qualified as a Brahmin. That's one of the planks of this equality, whatever. Thank you for completing. I've been trying to erase it from my mind. They assert that Hindus are casteist, that we have a rigid hierarchy and a structure which imposes upon you at birth what your status is. And that's what you're destined to be, and that's what you will remain. And there are penalties if you venture outside of those boundaries. It's utter nonsense. There's been a conflation of the caste word with a word that we have called Varna. And I would like you all to do an experiment once Swami Ambikananda has concluded, I'm going to try and draw the results from you. On the Castecon.com website, a button has magically appeared, as these things do, and it says, "What's your Varna?" I would invite each and every one of you, when you have an opportunity, to take your phone out, go to the website. All you need to know is your date of birth and your location of birth. Hit the magic button, and let's see what it shares with us. I look forward to finding out a bit more about you. It may well be that it's complete nonsense. It may well be that it's religious mumbo jumbo, but we have the freedom to say it doesn't harm anybody else. And so I'm sharing with you the opportunity to explore that. It's important because it establishes a principle that in our tradition, if you incarnate as a human being, you have a Varna. There is no such thing as a human being without Varna, unless that person has engaged in such spiritual austerities that they no longer have bodily identification. They are established in spirit and the unity of spirit. That's the only person who can say, I now have no Varna, I am no longer controlled by Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. So even the persons who are not of Indian origin, I would love for you to have a look and see what your Varna is. And then we can have a conversation about whether the Hindus of India are so exclusivist that they created an untouchable class. They created other classes which didn't even have Varnas. It's not true. Everybody has a Varna. On that note, I would like to invite Swami Ambikananda to join us. And Swamiji, it's, as I said, an absolute pleasure and honor. And I know that one of your students is here in the audience as well, so he'll probably want to just wave to you. If you spot him waving, that's him. All right. Om Swamiji, you have 6-7 minutes. Please do take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Panditji. Pranam. Good morning to all, although it's evening here in the UK, and to my fellow panelists, Ms. Jane Elliott and Mama Dee, thank you. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
25 years ago, I took sannyas, and what quickly emerged for me is that donning this robe meant that people who find themselves in one of those challenging situations of life would be approaching me. So for over 25 years, I've listened to both strangers and friends in some of their darkest moments. And what has emerged for me is that we as humans are now in an existential crisis. Since the dawn of industrialization, every attempt has been made to reduce our humanity. We are told we are empty biomechanisms, purchasing machines, entirely at the mercy of selfish genes that demand our reproduction, and market forces that demand that we do nothing but consume. Nothing else. We are encouraged to consign everything else to myth and to very vigorously resist it. Meaning has been stripped from life. The great Viktor Frankl, concentration camp survivor, taught us we can bear almost any how if we know a why. The search for why is mocked by the giants that have reduced us. Yet, almost every person I encounter in a difficult and dark situation are seeking not just a way out of that situation, they also deeply, at a fundamental level, want to understand why. And it's this that has brought me to reappraise Varna, which colonization distorted into the caste system. The Portuguese came first, they were the first to encounter it, and they named it Caste. When the British came, they took that up and they created the caste system. And it was a system of divide and rule, a hierarchy of domination and exploitation that very much mirrored the one they had created on these British Isles. In the Sanatana Dharma, we do have something known, as Panditji has said, as Varna. First, I have to tell you, Sanskrit is a dynamic and extremely subtle language. Varna means color or dye or covering. It's not the color of our skin. It is the color of our internal landscape. It's the internal characteristics that marks that in us which is unchanging and eternal, Atma. On the battlefield, Kshetra, where mighty forces were arrayed against each other, the avatar, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, took up the chariot reins of his friend and disciple and invited him to look at the enemy. And thus the great teaching of the Bhagavad Gita began, when Arjuna, the consummate disciple, looked at people that he should be friends with, he balked. And in that moment, many of the great teachings of the Gita emerged, and Varna was one of them. Chapter 4, verse 14, Krishna tells us everybody has a guna and a karma, and these are what define our Varna. Guna is an inner characteristic, a kind of thread, a deep impulse that defines us. And karma is the action we take. And what defines our actions? Our guna. We don't all react in the same way because everybody has a different guna. But as Panditji said, everybody has a guna and everybody acts on it. In the hours I sit in the morning in this room and do my meditation and my study, I am so much a Brahmin. I'm calm, studious, listening for that transcendent inner voice rather than the meanderings of my own mind. But then I get up and I encounter the day, and my true Varna emerges. I am a warrior, a Kshatriya. I do not seek a battle. I will never strike the first blow, but I will not evade the fight either, because that's not my nature, not my guna. My inner landscape demands that I rise to every challenge with a sword in hand. The sword might be my mind, honed for battle by 4 older brothers who, having taught me to be fierce, then told me frequently that I was a pesky little brat, always ready for a fight. I thank them. They were my first teachers in handling my combative nature, my warrior guna. How and what determines our guna that every person has? The only one, as Panditji said, that is without it is the avatar, where the Atman requires no masking. What determines it? Yes, it could be, as Panditji said, the moment of our birth, a past life, who knows? Whatever its origin, we all have it. What can give our lives meaning when we find ourselves on the battlefield? One of the most useful things is to deeply understand what we have within to meet the challenge we are faced with. The defining of these guna, these varna, was taught to me by Swami Agnivesh, founder of Bandhu Mukti Moksha, the Bonded Labor Liberation Front. The Brahman, he said, is the one who steps back from the battle, who invites us to pause and seek deeply inner truths and scriptural guidance. He or she does this while the warrior is making battle plans and the Vaishya is getting the community ready to endure, and the Shudra is seeing where his services are required. However, seeking the expression of Varna within myself was taught to me by my guru, Swami Venkateshananda. We can go to our birth chart and it can tell us, but Swamiji taught us the way of the yogin, pratyahara, to let that penetrating, intense gaze that we are always looking out at this world with into ourselves and allow your Varna to be revealed to you. It's not of importance to anybody else but ourselves. Uncover that inner guna and then learn how to express it in your life through action. As a Kshatriya, what is it that I will fight to protect and defend? This is going to give my life meaning. My dream for humanity is that we find our way out of this ugly distortion of race and caste system, a distortion imposed by colonization, and restore Varna. Then every challenge will become a learning process. Learning and growing from learning will then become our meaning. Every dark passage, no matter how we may painfully stumble along it, becomes filled with meaning because it becomes a means of taking us through our guna, even while we are acting on it, to an inner reality that is our eternal nature and everyone's eternal nature. Thank you all very much.
Om Swamiji, thank you very much indeed. At the beginning of our little conversation, we invoked a prayer to Devi Saraswati. We acknowledge that wisdom and knowledge are divinely feminine qualities. And I don't think anybody would doubt that we've been blessed with the contributions of some amazing teachers. So thank them very much. Thank you all very much. Now, today is one of those days where we've mastered the technology in this wonderful facility, but outside there is a world which is proving a little bit more challenging to master. Some of our guests and speakers have been traveling on flights, they've been delayed, and so whenever they pop up on the screen, it's, right, I've got 10 minutes before my next flight, can you please speak with us? So what I'm going to do is to invite some of our speakers who are ready and able to speak at this moment in time and shift the schedule a little with everyone's permission. Please bear with us. But before we do that, before I come to Salvatore, there is one, I keep calling you Salvatore. I'm so sorry, Salvatore. It's the Italian exposure. But we'll be inviting you to speak in one moment. Swamiji mentioned caste. And a number of people have spoken about caste. And recently, the legislators have tried to make the concept that caste is generic, that caste is worldwide, that it's existed everywhere. Now, for us, this is quite interesting because for the last 500-600 years, we've been told, hey, Hindus are castes. Our children in schools are taught the Hindu caste system. That little scenario we saw where division was created amongst the children, our children feel that. When the rest of the class is taught that these guys, their ancestors, are casteist. They have high castes and low castes. Our children feel alienated, embarrassed, and isolated and humiliated in those classes every time this word is mentioned to them. And so I want to just deal with this notion that caste isn't actually specific to the Hindu religion. Who would you ask about this? I pose this question to a new deity of wisdom that's appeared out there on the internet, ChatGPT. So could we have ChatGPT, please? Now, ChatGPT is a large language model. So it's compiled a vast amount of text, and then it answers according to its database. So if it says, this is the answer, then it's relying on the fact that this has been publicized for a long period of time. Please tell me about the caste system. The caste system is a social structure. My goodness, it really likes to talk quickly, doesn't it? Right? The caste system it's identifying is a hierarchical one with Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Hindu, 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 Hindu. So for the best part of half of a millennium, the world has been told that there are these terrible Hindus They have a caste system, and this is it. This bears no resemblance to the way in which we know our society has been organized. And so when we have legislators coming up and saying, we can fix you, we will do it for your good, right? And then in schools, they're teaching, oh, you're casteist. And then all of a sudden, the legislators say, no, 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 let's generalize this program. Let's generalize this concept. It's a deception. It's a fraudulent device intended to try and sneak very focused and targeted anti-Hindu legislation through the hoops that it has to be passed in order to get onto the books. Once it's on the books, we know what will happen. It will be in the HR manuals. It will be in the schools. It will be in hospitals. It will be talked about everywhere. And every single Hindu will be immediately isolated, humiliated, and separated. Now, if you understand the severity of what I've said, and I'm hoping that our legislators here and in other parts of the world where this is being spoken about, if you understand the severity of this, this is an existential threat for us. And as each and every one of us, when we are faced with an existential threat, with our backs to the wall, with the possible future benefits accruing to our children and their labors in jeopardy, everybody turns around, musters their resources and says, no. It awakens the inner Kshatriya, and I'm delighted that we're witnessing the inner Kshatriya beginning to articulate its desire to survive unhindered, untainted, unattacked. And that's the challenge that is in front of the legislators. I would genuinely put forward the proposition, this is bad law, it will never be permitted. And as long as there is one Hindu who knows the truth of their history and what was done to us in colonial times, it will be challenged again and again and again. The legislators in the United Kingdom, they recognize that we're a capable community. They recognize that we're a community who have abilities, who have resources. And it's not because we don't like to fight, right? It's not because we're incapable of it. It's because we genuinely only view it as a last resort. Wouldn't it be wonderful for us to resolve this issue long before it became a last resort? And please do bear in mind we're reincarnationists, so we keep coming back. Right?
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.